Hello class, and welcome to today's class, and essentially I'm going to go over as much as I possibly can, as quickly as I possibly can. We're going to be talking about abstraction today, and please make it to the end because there's so much valuable information in here, and I can't stress this enough. If you're really interested in creating art, go to the very end. So as you can see here, this is just some of the examples of some of my artwork. You can see that I know a little bit about abstract art just from the fact of what I've created, and you can tell that it's quite of high quality. Anyway, going on, listen to the end, there'll be a reward for it, trust me. So some artists that started, who authors Mark Rothko. His art career had started at the Arts Students League of New York. This is important to you if you are serious about abstraction, and it's going to be one of these places to go. If you want to hear more about this and have me read more into this artist, please let me know in the comments and I will continue going into it more. He's also known for his abstract painting. Some of his consider his paintings moody. The important thing to note to take is that abstract art is about emotions and what one feels and letting it out on paper or canvas, for example. So this is also probably useful for things like art therapy while I'm on it. But here's a quote from him. Tradition of starting with drawing in an academic notion, may we start with colour. Let that sit with you for a bit, because that is something that he did say. But overall, he is known for painting in abstraction and colour, and believed colour is very important in art, which I actually agree with that statement. Now we go on to Jackson Pollock. This is the artist who has inspired a lot of my artwork, especially early on. I would also recommend looking into the Australian artist Richard Bell. He is also an amazing artist as well, and they've both inspired me. Now, instead of talking about these two artists, I want you to think of expression and movement of these artists and look them both up and make sure you pay attention to both of these artists' history, as it really tells you the type of person they are. And this is one of the things that you want to really consider if you're serious about being an artist. You will be remembered for the person you are and your art, so make sure that you're a kind person, because that's what you're going to be remembered for, and that's kind of my responsibility to just remind people that as an artist myself. Now, so that is some homework that I've got for you that are really serious about it, to look into that, or even just look up your own artist and mention it in the comments, and I'll look into that artist as well, and we can both learn a bit more about art together, because this is what it is all about, learning together. And this part of the benefits of why this class is free right now is that we're on a journey learning together. In the future, it might be a paid service, especially if it's seen as being really valuable. But anyway, for the now, it's completely free, and that's what you have to worry about. So, moving on to the next part I want to talk in the video is, I want you to comment about what you found, as well as if you want me to cover a particular comment, leave a comment as well. And if you want to make a suggestion for what I'm doing, please do. But remember that the more out of the scope that this is, out of the creative field, it could be something more complicated. It will really take me time to learn it, because I want to be performing it properly if it is the case. So try to keep it within the visual art field, so focusing on painting, drawing, and sorts. I know I've posted at the beginning of me playing the guitar. That will take me longer to do confidently. As you can see in the title, it says shy, but if you guys request me to do that, I will do that. Shout out to the fan who did suggest that. So now we're going back to the content of the class, and I just want to really point out these 3 key points about expressionism, which is a movement pre-World War I. It's an avant-garde style. It covers a broad range of art such as painting, literature, theatre, dance, film, and music. and it had a Jewish origin, and as most of these painters, focus on expressing moods or ideas. Look this up on the internet or your local library. You might be surprised what you just find out from looking into this information, and it could be relevant to today, especially if you're creating artwork. History sometimes just has a habit of repeating itself, so maybe we should just keep the history repeating itself to the art, and then maybe people might be happier. You never know. Anyway, here are some more things for those serious learners and fans out there that I just want to talk about right now. Is learners, leave a comment about what you would like to see more information about. And fans, leave a comment on what art you want to see. Leave a like if possible. And one last thing is a special treat for info to all of those that make it to the end. I will now be talking about the abstraction part of the class, which I'm kind of just winging to talk about more than the other part of the history, which is something that I actually spent time looking up, which is really important to consider with history, is that you've got to look it up before you make any kind of comment on it, especially with historical artists on this channel. If you're going to leave a comment on it, make sure you know the sources. Even check my sources. I'm not going to I'm not posting those sources right now that I'm using, but in the future I will read a lot more in depth. So yeah, but getting on to talking about abstraction, and this is going to be more about what I've experienced myself as being an abstract artist. So think of this as just me telling you about what I've experienced more than anything. So to me, abstraction art personally is all about movement. That's just what I use. So that's why I've been talking about Richard Bell and Jackson Pollock earlier, because they're a source of inspiration for me. But I also mentioned Mark Rothko. Mark Rothko really isn't like a huge inspiration for me personally, but it is a good artist to look into because he was incredibly famous and created artworks that were worth a lot of money. So it's a good, and he didn't make that money for no reason, so it would be good to look him up. One of the other things that Pollock would do is he would just drip the art onto the canvas. So if you looked earlier at the paintings, you can go back if you want, but I'm not going to go back now. I'm recording this on a long tangent. Is that he would drip the painting onto the canvas and essentially start dancing around the canvas, and you would eventually have paint dripping down onto it, and it would create this interesting kind of drawing-like creation. And that's what that made me think about, is drawing and painting really closer than we think, and they're almost kind of like the same, because we can use techniques from drawing to apply to painting, and we can use techniques from painting to apply to drawing. So I see that Pollock is, a lot of his stuff is drawing essentially with paint, but doing it in a very expressive way, which is one of the reasons why it's also called non-representational art in Australia, and that's what they taught at my art schools, non-representational art, to really separate it from the figure. I'm calling it abstract because that's more of what it's called in America, and I imagine TikTok is a bit bigger in America than Australia and has a larger population, so it's all about getting a large reach of an audience, really. Some of the other things about Richard Bell is that he would use colour in the background on top of applying Jackson Pollock's methods of drawing with paint, essentially by dripping it onto the canvas. I'd say that he's actually a better artist than Jackson Pollock, and he's has more of a message behind his art. And that is something really to consider when you're an artist, is like, what is my message that I want to get forward? Because Richard Bell has completely nailed that perfectly. He has the message that he wants to send is very clear, it's very provocative, and he stands behind his words completely. And that is something to really admire as an artist, and make sure that you listen to those artists, because those are the artists that are really important and are defending the true nature of art, in my case. Which brings me on to one of my favourite quotes from Jackson Pollock's is, "I am nature." Just something for you guys to ponder on, essentially. And that is kind of a part of creating with this type of painting, is that it's best if you actually do it outside and within nature itself. If you're doing an action painting, is what Pollock originally would call it. Is he described it as action painting, which is what both Richard Bell, Jackson Pollock, and myself use in our artwork, as this form called action painting. I'll do a video of that in the future. I've just been waiting to get a lot of other drawings done first. And paintings, but it's something that if you guys are really interested in, I'll actually go and do an artwork like that. But if you want me to do a particular artwork or cover a topic, I'm going to stress this out as much as I can. Leave a comment, suggest what you do, leave a like. This is something that the channel really needs right now, and I want to have a reach as large as possible with people who are genuinely engaged, because that is what's really important to me here. Not only so I can teach others, but so others can actually teach me as well. Now, as you can see, I've done like 2 different drawings in this episode, and I'm just going to go over some of the stuff that we have learned in our previous videos, and just do a little bit of a rehash on that right now, because the new people might have not seen this and they might be really interested in the channel, and I want them to get as much information as they possibly can from every post that I make. So these key points are always going to be important, general to specific. Even in this artwork right here, is I'm smudging it around. It started off as like being like almost this chaos thing, but I had a plan. And that's another thing that I haven't mentioned yet that I want to mention now, is because this applies to abstraction, is play. These artworks had no plan beforehand, and when I went on the canvas, I just went off and did it and put something on the pen and paper. Sometimes the hardest thing we have to do is actually just putting the material to the paper. I use pastels as well as texture in these 2 drawings, which both have their own unique texture as well as way it's applied to the paper. So that's always something to keep in mind as well, that every material is going to react differently to the paper. Unless you're doing digital art, then every digital kind of pen that you pick would have like a different effect, so that's something to keep in mind as well. So I've used Critter before, and I find that to be an excellent free app to use if you have a drawing iPad, which would be an amazing device to have if you can. It's always good to make sure that you can get whatever materials that you can though, and don't restrict yourself. If you can't afford a particular material, just find a less expensive material to get you by, because I understand that my listeners might be from anywhere around the world, and I want to tell you, those that have especially listened for so long, if you're in like a country that isn't as well off as my country, which is Australia, that there are still other ways to make art. You can make art with pencils, coloured pencils. You've seen me make art with just coloured pencils, and it's a material that's easily accessible compared to other materials. But even lead pencil, you could do something similar as my coloured drawings just with lead pencil if you shade it differently. I could do like a little bit of an introduction of how to do that as well. That's within my knowledge base, but it would really have to be requested in the comments section. And the video is about to wrap up right now, so please leave a comment in the comment section about what content you would like me to cover. And for those that have made it to the end, I am so happy that you made it to the end. It means a lot to me, and please